What if the greatest treasure humanity ever created was not gold, not power, not empires, but knowledge? Imagine a place where the brightest minds of the ancient world gathered, where ideas shaped civilizations, where the future of humanity was quietly written on fragile scrolls. And then, in a single moment of chaos, it all vanished into fire. The Library of Alexandria was not just a building, it was the memory of human civilization. But how did the greatest collection of knowledge in history disappear? Was it war, religion, politics, or something far more complicated? Tonight, we uncover one of history's greatest mysteries. After conquering vast lands, Alexander the Great arrived on the golden shores of Egypt. Before him stretched empty lands and quiet villages, waiting to be transformed into a city that would change the course of history. Under the guidance of Ptolemy I Soter, the city was meticulously planned. Streets, walls, and marketplaces were carefully laid out, blending Greek knowledge with Egyptian tradition. Builders raised columns, laid stones, and constructed the first docks. Merchants set up stalls, and soon the air was filled with the bustle of life. Architects sketched detailed plans on papyrus scrolls, dreaming of a city that would stand for centuries. Scholars arrived from Greece and Egypt, carrying scrolls and ideas, eager to share knowledge and study the world. Citizens admired the growing city, walking through streets that were slowly becoming the beating heart of Mediterranean culture. And as the sun rose over the partially built Library of Alexandria, its massive columns gleamed, promising a future where knowledge would be treasured above all else.
Within the rising city of Alexandria, there emerged a place unlike any other in the ancient world. A place not built for kings, nor for armies, but for the pursuit of knowledge itself. The Library of Alexandria. To step inside its walls was to step into the collective mind of humanity. Endless halls stretched beneath towering columns, filled with scrolls that carried the voices of distant civilizations. Scholars traveled from across continents to study here. Some came seeking answers to the mysteries of the stars. Others sought to understand the human body, the nature of matter, or the laws that governed the universe. Within quiet chambers, lit by flickering oil lamps, scribes worked tirelessly to copy texts by hand. Each scroll was treated as a sacred vessel of thought. Knowledge was not merely stored, it was cultivated. Philosophers debated the meaning of existence. Mathematicians explored patterns hidden within numbers. Astronomers charted the heavens, mapping constellations that would guide travelers for centuries. The library was more than a building. It was a living network of minds, connected by a shared belief that understanding the world was humanity's greatest achievement. Ships arriving in Alexandria's harbor were often inspected for books. Any text deemed valuable would be taken to the library. There, scribes would produce careful copies. The original might remain within the vast archives, while the duplicate was returned. Such was the city's hunger for knowledge. It is said that within these walls, the accumulated wisdom of Greece, Egypt, Persia, India, and beyond existed side by side. Ideas that would shape civilizations were debated in its courtyards. Discoveries that would influence science for millennia were quietly recorded on fragile papyrus. Yet beneath this brilliance, there lingered an unspoken fragility. For knowledge, no matter how vast, depends upon the stability of the world that protects it. And history would soon reveal just how vulnerable even the greatest centers of learning could be.
As Alexandria flourished, the world beyond its walls grew increasingly unstable. Power shifted, alliances fractured, ambition ignited rivalries that would soon reach the city's gates. In the year 48 BCE, the tides of war carried Julius Caesar to the shores of Egypt. What began as a political struggle would spiral into chaos within the very streets of Alexandria. For the citizens, war did not arrive as a grand spectacle. It came as whispers in the marketplace, hurried footsteps at dusk, and distant smoke rising beyond the harbor. Soldiers marched through narrow alleys, armor glinting beneath a pale sun. Orders were shouted, gates were sealed, the rhythms of daily life began to fracture. Along the docks, flames licked at moored ships as conflict spread. What was meant to control the sea soon threatened the city itself. Panic moved faster than any army. Families gathered what they could carry. Merchants abandoned stalls. Scholars clutched scrolls, uncertain if knowledge could survive the storm. Within the library's vast halls, a different battle unfolded, not of swords, but of time. Scribes worked by trembling lamplight, copying texts with desperate urgency. Custodians sealed archives. Voices echoed through corridors that had once known only quiet contemplation. Outside, the night burned. Embers rode the wind like silent messengers of ruin. Some accounts would later claim the fires began at the harbor, others that they spread by accident or by fear. In war, certainty is often the first casualty. As flames crept closer, the boundaries between strategy and catastrophe blurred. What had been a beacon of civilization now stood in the path of forces too vast to control. And somewhere in that chaos, the memory of humanity began to turn to ash. When the flames finally subsided, silence took their place. Not the peaceful silence of a resting city, but the heavy stillness that follows irreversible loss. The Library of Alexandria, once the brightest beacon of human thought, now stood as a wounded monument to forgotten ambitions. Ash drifted through its ruined halls like the ghosts of unwritten ideas. Charred fragments of papyrus whispered beneath the footsteps of those who dared to return. Here, knowledge had once breathed. Now it struggled to be remembered. The destruction was not merely physical, it was intellectual,
cultural, existential. For within those walls had lived the collected dreams of civilizations, the calculations of mathematicians, the observations of astronomers, the philosophies of thinkers who sought to understand existence itself. Entire worlds of thought had vanished in a matter of nights. Some scholars wept, others fell into silence so deep that history never recorded their grief. Yet even in despair, a quiet resistance began. Survivors gathered fragments, recalled teachings from memory, passed whispered ideas from teacher to student like sacred embers. Knowledge, though wounded, refused to die. Across deserts and seas, travelers carried what little remained: a scroll hidden in cloth, a theorem preserved in memory, a philosophical question repeated through generations. Thus began a new journey for human understanding. In distant monasteries, candlelight flickered over reconstructed manuscripts. In hidden chambers, scholars debated truths inherited from a lost world. Centuries later, the echoes of Alexandria would awaken again. During the Renaissance, ancient ideas resurfaced like long-buried constellations. Science rekindled its flame. Philosophy rediscovered its voice. The library itself was gone, yet its spirit had diffused across the fabric of civilization. For knowledge is not confined to stone walls. It lives within minds. It travels through time. It survives in the fragile persistence of curiosity. Alexandria's tragedy became humanity's lesson: that brilliance is vulnerable, that wisdom must be protected, that civilizations are measured not by the monuments they build, but by the ideas they preserve. Today, libraries stand across the world as silent guardians of memory. Universities, archives, and digital networks continue a mission begun millennia ago. Yet the question remains: are we truly safer from forgetting? Or do new forms of destruction wait in shadows yet unseen? The fall of Alexandria reminds us that progress is never permanent, that enlightenment requires vigilance, that the pursuit of truth demands courage. Somewhere in the vast continuum of human history, the last embers of that ancient fire still glow, not as instruments of ruin, but as symbols of responsibility. For every generation inherits the fragile torch of knowledge, and what we choose to do with it will define the memory of our own civilization. Perhaps the greatest legacy of Alexandria is not what was lost, but what humanity learned to protect thereafter. In the quiet turning of a page, in the flicker of a scholar's lamp, in the boundless curiosity of a questioning mind, the library still lives, not in marble, not in papyrus, but in us.